A bombshell allegation from Ukraine. China's been feeding Russia satellite intelligence for targeting purposes, and one strike, reportedly using Chinese targeting intel, hit a U.S.-owned facility. If true, it marks a major escalation in China's role in the war. Coming up, we'll look at what Kyiv's claim could mean for Beijing, for Moscow, and, of course, for Washington. A major allegation from Ukrainian intelligence services, one that, if true, suggests China's involvement in Russia's war in Ukraine is far deeper than Beijing and Moscow have ever admitted. According to Ukraine's Foreign Intelligence Agency, China is supplying Russia with satellite reconnaissance data, intelligence that has helped Moscow identify and target key infrastructure across Ukraine. And Ukrainian officials say that one of those targets wasn't Ukrainian at all. It was American. Back in August of this year, a Russian missile slammed into a U.S.-owned appliance factory in the western Zakarpattia region. 15 people were injured in that strike. Ukrainian President Zelensky and local officials said at the time that the attack had no military justification. The factory was producing consumer goods, including coffee machines. But now, Ukrainian intelligence says that site was hit using coordinates gathered from Chinese satellite surveillance, shared directly with Moscow. Ole Alexandrov, a senior official with Ukraine's Foreign Intelligence Service, told the state-run Ukrinform agency that there's, quote, evidence of a high level of cooperation between Russia and China in conducting satellite reconnaissance of Ukrainian territory. He added that many of the sites struck in recent months, quote, belong to foreign investors. In other words, Ukraine is publicly accusing China of helping Russia aim its missiles, not just at Ukrainian targets, but at an American-owned property inside a war zone. If true, this would represent one of the most serious escalations of Chinese involvement in the conflict to date. For months now, Kyiv has been ramping up its accusations that Beijing is quietly assisting Moscow's war effort, supplying weapons components, raw materials, and gunpowder. But satellite intelligence for targeting, that moves that relationship to a new level. It would mean that China isn't merely profiting from the war, which they have been, or turning a blind eye, which they have been, but while supporting Russia. It's actually enabling Russian strikes. And there's some corroboration in the pattern of strikes. Western intelligence analysts have noted that Russia's missile campaigns this year have increasingly focused on logistical and economic infrastructure, including energy grids, manufacturing centers, and transport hubs, targets that often require precise satellite data to identify. Until now, Moscow's access to high-quality satellite imagery has been limited. Western sanctions cut off Russia from most commercial providers, and its domestic systems lag behind Western and Chinese capabilities. And that, of course, is where Beijing could come in. China operates one of the world's most advanced networks of reconnaissance satellites. These platforms can capture high-resolution imagery and electronic data over Europe and Ukraine in near real time. If that information were shared with Moscow, it would give Russian planners a major advantage in targeting accuracy, something Ukraine's defense forces have been keenly aware of. Ukraine's accusation also comes as China and Russia continue to deepen their public partnership. Their militaries have held joint naval drills in the Pacific, and Chinese companies have reportedly filled much of the export void left by Western firms pulling out of Russia. Chinese goods now make up more than half of Russia's imports, ranging from electronics and machinery to components that can be repurposed for military use. And it's not just trade. Zelensky has accused Beijing of supplying gunpowder to Russian munitions factories and providing drone technology that's later used against Ukrainian forces. Ukraine's defense ministry has even claimed that Chinese citizens have been identified working in Russian defense plants. China's foreign ministry has again rejected the latest accusations. Well, of course they have, calling them disinformation and saying that, quote, China has always taken an objective and fair position on the Ukrainian issue. Beijing maintains that it hasn't provided lethal aid to any side, but lethal, of course, is the key word there. Intelligence support, components, and raw materials don't technically fall under that label, even though the end result is lethal actions. For Moscow, this accusation could prove useful in propaganda terms. The Kremlin immediately seized on the story to argue that the U.S. is guilty of the same thing, pointing out that Washington routinely provides Kyiv with satellite data and targeting information. Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov told reporters this week that, quote, the United States already gives Ukraine intelligence on a regular basis. That's a line meant to suggest moral equivalency between the two powers. But the difference, of course, is that U.S. intelligence isn't being used to bomb foreign-owned civilian factories in Russia. Not to mention, this entire 3-year mess is the result of Russia's invasion of Ukraine. So, well, there's that. U.S. officials have repeatedly told Beijing that providing military support to Russia would bring about serious consequences. Up to now, those warnings have gone mostly untested. But if Ukraine releases verifiable proof that Chinese satellite intelligence was used in the August strike, for example, the diplomatic fallout could be significant. For now, Kyiv says it plans to share its evidence with Western partners. And meanwhile, there's no indication that China and Russia intend to back down. But the big takeaway here is that the lines between China's so-called neutrality, which, I'm sorry, I couldn't even say that without laughing, and active participation are blurring fast. Beijing can always be counted on to do what serves Beijing's interests, of course, and if helping Moscow weakens the West or keeps the U.S. distracted, that's a calculation China's perfectly comfortable making. All right, a quick update. Episode 4 of our podcast series, The Day the World Almost Ended, is out now. This one takes us inside the Kremlin on a morning in 1995 when Russian President Boris Yeltsin, remember him, was actually handed the nuclear briefcase after Russian radar showed what looked like an American missile heading toward Moscow. For the first and only time in history, Russia's nuclear launch system was engaged. You can listen to the new episode and catch up on the first 3 by becoming a premium member of the PDB, and that's a very simple thing to do. Just go to pdbpremium.com. All right, coming up next, Hamas and Israel possibly inch toward a ceasefire under Trump's plan, while more mystery drones over Europe ground flights and spark additional security fears. I'll be right back. Hey, Mike Baker here. Now, I've spent a large portion of my life, of my career, in the field. Long hours, tough terrain, no room for gear that can't keep up. And that's why I trust Brunt Workwear. That's Brunt, B-R-U-N-T, just like it sounds. For example, their field boots, they're rugged, they're waterproof, and importantly, they're comfortable right out of the box. There was no break-in needed. Brunt builds more than boots, too. They build work pants, jackets, all of it built to perform. Durable, reliable, and mission-ready. For those who get after it, Brunt's got your back. Brunt was tired of the workwear brands out there cutting corners. Look, you work too hard to be stuck in uncomfortable boots that don't hold up, right? So they built something better, boots that are insanely comfortable and built for any job site. And for a limited time, our listeners get $10 off at Brunt when you use code PDB at checkout. Just head over to bruntworkwear.com. Use the code PDB, and you're good to go. And after you order, they'll ask where you heard about Brunt. Do us a favor and tell them the PDB sent you. Welcome back to the PDB. In what was the first substantial movement toward peace in months, Hamas on Friday said it would conditionally, that's an important word here, accept the Trump administration's 20-point ceasefire proposal. It's a potential breakthrough that could secure the release of all Israeli hostages, living and dead. Trump posted the full Hamas statement on Truth Social, writing, quote, Israel must immediately stop the bombing of Gaza so that we can get the hostages out safely and quickly. We are already in discussions about details to be worked out, end quote. The announcement followed our coverage last week of Trump's 3-day deadline for Hamas to respond to his peace framework, now endorsed across the Arab world. The main points call for an immediate truce, the release of hostages, and a phased Israeli withdrawal tied to verifiable demilitarization benchmarks, meaning each stage of withdrawal would depend on Hamas meeting security standards confirmed by independent monitors. Israeli sources told Channel 12 that the negotiators will show, quote, no flexibility on Hamas's disarmament, insisting any withdrawal must be tied to the proposed benchmark mechanisms. A map included in Trump's post outlined each phase in detail: Israeli withdrawal along Gaza's border, a permanent Israeli security perimeter under international oversight, and a timeline of, quote, standards, milestones, and timeframes. The line, demarcated in Trump's map, represents the Israeli position prior to Operation Gideon's Chariots, the offensive earlier this year in which Israel conquered more than 70% of the Strip. It's the clearest picture yet of how Washington envisions ending the war while locking in regional stability. In a video recorded from the Oval Office, Trump stopped short of declaring full victory, but didn't hide his optimism. Quote, "This is a big day. We'll see how it turns out. We have to get the final word down in concrete. Very importantly, I look forward to having the hostages come home." Hamas, for its part, said it would release all hostages under Trump's proposed exchange formula, but demanded firmer guarantees on Israeli withdrawal and its own future within a, quote, unified Palestinian movement. There's the rub. It's worth noting that Hamas has implied that they will only release the hostages if their conditions are met in terms of changes to the proposed plan. Initial indications are that they don't intend to disarm, and they will demand that they play a role in future governance of Gaza. The terror group also said it was ready to, quote, immediately enter into negotiations through the mediators Qatar, Egypt, and the U.S. to discuss details. Trump's plan stipulates that Israel release 250 life-sentence prisoners and 1,700 detainees from Gaza arrested after the 7 October 2023 Hamas attacks, in exchange for all 48 remaining Israeli hostages. Roughly 20 of those hostages are believed to still be alive. But still, Hamas's leadership remains split, reportedly. The Wall Street Journal reports that the political and military wings have not yet reached agreement on full disarmament, with a Gaza-based commander insisting keeping what the group called, quote, defensive weapons, such as assault rifles. Other Hamas officials admit, they can't enforce disarmament among rank-and-file fighters. Still, Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu, in a rare Sabbath statement, confirmed that Israel, quote, is preparing for the immediate implementation of the first stage of President Trump's plan for the release of all hostages. The IDF echoed that line, saying it had begun preparations for, quote, phase 1 of the framework. Israel's Hostage Families Forum, long critical of the government's slow pace, urged Netanyahu to, quote, immediately begin efficient and swift negotiations. Photos from a massive Tel Aviv protest showed a banner stretched across the town square reading, quote, it's now or never. Qatar's foreign ministry hailed Hamas's conditional acceptance as, quote, a positive step toward ending the war, while Egypt pledged to, quote, exert maximum effort, coordination with Arab and Islamic brothers, the United States, the European side, and the international community to reach a permanent ceasefire. And so, talks are set to begin today in Egypt. Hamas's delegation will be led by Khalil Al-Hayya, the senior official based in Qatar, who narrowly survived an Israeli airstrike in Doha last month. While the Israeli side will include Strategic Affairs Minister Ron Dermer, Netanyahu's hostage envoy, and senior officials from both Shin Bet and Mossad. As the mediators and delegations descend on Egypt, President Trump's post to Truth Social reads, quote, when Hamas confirms the plan, the ceasefire will be immediately effective, which will bring us close to the end of this 3,000-year catastrophe, end quote. All right, turning to Europe. It was another weekend of mysterious drone activity across German skies, grounding flights, stranding passengers, and building on fears that Russia is again probing NATO's readiness. As we've been tracking here on the PDB, Germany has become the latest epicenter of the surge. Drone sightings have repeatedly disrupted airspace above airports and military installations, most notably around Munich Airport, which was forced to close both runways twice late last week after back-to-back incursions on Thursday and Friday. More than 11,500 passengers were stranded across 2 nights. Dozens of flights were canceled or diverted. Operations only partially resumed by Saturday morning when the airport reopened. According to the German newspaper Bild, citing a confidential police report, the drones over Munich were, quote, used militarily, though the country's officials, much like its NATO neighbors, have yet to truly place the drones' origins. On Thursday, 3 drones were spotted buzzing in formation above a federal police base near the country's central region. Minutes later, more appeared over the Erding military base in the south, which is Germany's hub for drone research and development, just as Munich Airport was first shut down. Germany's interior minister, speaking while hosting a migration-focused summit in Munich, switched topics, vowing to equip police with a dedicated drone defense unit, calling the situation, quote, an arms race. He added that forthcoming legislation would authorize police to request military intervention to shoot down hostile drones. And much like previous incursions, sightings spread. Belgian officials confirmed unidentified drones on Friday over the Elsenborn military base in eastern Belgium, as well as about 20 miles deep on the German side of the border. Belgian and German police tracked as many as 15 separate drones along the cross-border region. A Belgian defense spokesman told CBS News, quote, defense officials were currently examining the matter, end quote. Well, that's nice. As we've discussed here before on the PDB, officials haven't traced the source of every drone incursion. However, European intelligence services claim that the flights exhibit all the hallmarks of Russian reconnaissance, testing detection thresholds and response times. The Kremlin denies everything, of course, and there's a shock. Yet the pattern mirrors recent airspace violations attributed to Russia over Poland, Romania, and Estonia, not to mention similar drone incursions in Danish airspace. At a Copenhagen summit last week, European defense ministers launched a new initiative dubbed Eastern Flank Watch to strengthen EU joint air and defense drone systems. Danish Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen put it bluntly, quote, from a European perspective, there's only one country willing to threaten us, and that's Russia. And therefore, we need a very strong answer back. The project, as we've touched on before, is designed to build a block-wide surveillance and interception wall, linking radar, intelligence, and counter-drone systems. European officials warn that the latest drone swarms over Germany exposed dangerous gaps in the continent's aerial security architecture. Okay, coming up in the back of the brief, the U.S. hits another suspected drug boat near Venezuela, marking the fourth strike in recent weeks in Washington's growing anti-cartel campaign. More on that when we come back. Hey, Mike Baker here. Let me take just a moment of your time to talk about protecting your hard-earned assets. That's an important topic, right? Look, did you know that gold is up around 40% this year? That's not speculation. It's just reality. And if a portion of your savings isn't diversified into gold, well, you could be missing the boat. Here's the facts. Inflation is still too high. The U.S. dollar is still too weak. And the government debt seems insurmountable. And that's why central banks are flocking to gold, and they're the ones driving prices up to record highs. But it's not too late to buy gold from Birch Gold Group and get in the door now. Birch Gold will help you convert an existing IRA or a 401k into a tax-sheltered IRA in gold. And you don't pay a dime out of pocket. Just text PDB to 989-898 and claim your free information kit. There's no obligation. It's just useful information. Remember, the best indicator of the future is the past, and gold has historically been a safe haven for generations during times of inflation or instability. Text PDB to 989-898 right now to claim your free information kit on gold. That's PDB to 989-898. Protect your future today with Birch Gold. In today's back of the brief, the U.S. has struck again. Secretary of War Pete Hegseth confirmed a fourth deadly hit on a Venezuelan drug vessel as the Trump administration steps up their war on narco-terrorists in the Caribbean. Hegseth said Friday's operation, carried out in international waters, targeted a vessel, quote, transporting substantial amounts of narcotics headed to America to poison our people. In a post on X, he vowed, quote, these strikes will continue until the attacks on the American people are over. He later added, without providing evidence, that U.S. intelligence, quote, without a doubt, confirmed the vessel was carrying drugs and manned by Venezuelan narco-terrorists. A 40-second video released by the administration shows a vessel racing through open waters before it was hit, sending flames and debris across the sea. The Pentagon has not released the names of those killed nor confirmed what drug or drugs were recovered from the wreckage. President Trump framed the strike as part of his broader America First doctrine of preemptive defense, destroying the cartel's product before it reaches U.S. shores. The president said that the vessel carried enough drugs to kill up to 50,000 Americans and warned that his administration is, quote, also considering expanded action against cartels coming by land. Last week, the Pentagon disclosed to Congress that the U.S. is now engaged in, quote, a non-international armed conflict with drug cartels. That's a legal classification that effectively authorizes military force against transnational crime groups. As we've reported here on the PDB, the Southern Caribbean is now congested with U.S. hardware, 1 nuclear-powered submarine, 8 warships, and thousands of sailors and Marines. Washington frames the deployment as a mission to combat drug trafficking. As you might imagine, Venezuela is painting a different picture. Venezuelan dictator Nicolas Maduro denounced the strikes as, quote, acts of imperial aggression. Meanwhile, the U.S. continues to offer a $50 million reward for information leading to Maduro's arrest on drug trafficking charges. Critics of the Trump administration's counter-narcotics actions, including former military lawyers, argue that Trump's campaign stretches beyond the limits of international law. They note the administration has not identified those killed or released proof of narcotics recovered, but Trump administration officials insist that the policy is lawful and necessary to defend the homeland. Now, I honestly don't lose sleep over the targeting of narco-terrorists or cartel members, but I would like to see the White House be more transparent in explaining their targeting process and providing specifics about the targets. Right now, without doing that, they're simply allowing their critics to frame the narrative. The White House should, to the degree possible, and without giving up sources and methods, of course, provide details on which cartels are being hit and the drugs they were transporting. And that, my friends, is the President's Daily Brief for Monday, the 6th of October. If you have any questions or comments, please reach out to me at pdb@thefirsttv.com. And don't forget to check out and hopefully subscribe to our YouTube channel. That's basically found on YouTube, as you might imagine. And you can go there and visit at President's Daily Brief. That's right. Again, it's very simple to do. I'm Mike Baker, and I'll be back later today with the PDB Afternoon Bulletin. Until then, stay informed, stay safe, stay cool. Hey, Mike Baker here. Now, before Ridge wallets came along, I carried this giant, worn-out leather brick of a wallet in my back pocket. You know what I'm talking about? One of those massive. It's stuffed with things, right? And then you stick it in your back pocket, and it's just not comfortable. It's bulky, it's uneven, and honestly, a pain, literally. So switching to Ridge completely changed the game. Look, their wallets are slim, they're modern, they're tough enough to hold up to 12 cards plus cash, if you still carry cash, made from premium materials like aluminum, titanium, and carbon fiber. Get that. Over 50 colors and styles means that you can pick one that actually fits your personality. Ridge wallets also come with RFID blocking technology for peace of mind and a lifetime warranty. And so as far as I'm concerned, well, this is the last wallet I'll ever buy. And over 100,000 five-star reviews back it up. For a limited time, our listeners get 10% off at Ridge by using code PDB at checkout. Just head over to ridge.com and use code PDB, and you're all set. It's that simple. Then after your purchase, they'll ask you where you heard about them. Well, do me a favor. Tell them the PDB sent you.
Hey, thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit that like button and leave a comment, a really positive, nice, and kind comment. That would be appreciated. And if you're not already subscribed to our channel, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss any of our daily updates.